Great. Okay, so I guess I'll just introduce myself to those of you who I haven't met. My name is Breck, and I'm Sarah's contact here at Dreamapply. So whenever you run into technical issues that can't be resolved, then you contact Sarah, and Sarah contacts me, and we do our best to work everything out. So real quickly, before other people contribute this today to this webinar, I have two quick presentations to give myself. The first will be basically a quick overview on how to start as a brand new internal member in the EZ system. I'll quickly show you some things that you should be doing in order to get the full use out of the system. And then after that, what might be more interesting for people who have been with the EZ system for more than 1 year, I'll cover a brief overview of the some developments that we did for you at the request of the AEC. So without further ado, I will get right into my slides. Oh, we can hear you, Lucia.
Good.
Yeah.
Good, perfect.
So please feel free to ask questions in the chat or just speak up, and I'll do my best to answer your questions as I go along. Okay, I'll share my screen now. And can you see my screen?
Difficult to see. Yes, now it's loading.
Yeah. Okay. So this quick presentation, which I will give the slide, well, actually, Sarah has the slides, so you can have these yourself for future reference. And so I just want to give you a brief overview on how to go about setting up a new institution for those of you who are brand new. So in our system, what is needed for this mobility management that you will be using EZ for? Well, there are administrators. You are one of them, I presume. There are institutions, and then so the administrators work on the inside of the system, and they manage the institution profiles. And then there are agreements between the institutions. We have a nice agreement management system that has been around for over a year now, and it seems to be working really nice. And then we have intakes. These are the application periods, the period of time when the applicants can access the app forms, and the app forms are basically what you modify in your own way to get the questions that you need for the applicants' applications. And then the last thing I want to take you through is the journal. The journal is a nice way to get some automatic emails sent to you on a daily basis whenever certain things take place in the system. And so I'll move right along. Oops, wrong. Okay, so first of all, as an administrator, you want to work on your institution profile. One thing you'll want to determine right away is if you are just going to be an institution or if you're going to have departments underneath your institution. So the one thing to be mindful of is that the mobilities are assigned to institutions and not departments. So what that means is you can have departments, but we cannot use the different levels of administrators between departments and mobilities. So unfortunately, when you create an administrator with rights to only a department, they are not able to see the mobilities, the applications. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's nice to have that information there for the applicants, that there are different departments, but don't expect that the applications are going only to those departments. They actually are going to the institution themselves. Secondly, you'll need to set up the contact person. And this is basically a requirement for internal institutions, but it's really important that going forward that we encourage our external partners to put in their contact information as well. This is something that I stressed when we were in Birmingham, and unfortunately I haven't seen as much traction in getting more contacts in the external institutions as I would have liked to have seen. So that's maybe something that you guys can talk to your partners about and get them to put in their information. I'll explain a little bit more why this is important coming up. So yeah, this is why, yeah, because there are a few automatically generated emails from the system that if there is no contact person in the external system, then a particular email, which is a nomination confirmation email, then it will not arrive at them and they will not be able to indicate using a URL link that either the applicant has been nominated or has not been nominated. So without that information in the system, these emails just don't go anywhere. So that's why one real fundamental reason why we need the external emails. And then also it's very useful for the when you use the export feature for the learning agreement. Okay, so next, other things that we can add to our institution profile are the media files. And so those can be photos or YouTube videos or even PDF files. So that's a nice place to put the PDF file of your course brochure or your prospectus, is just drag and drop into the media files. And then what else? We can also manage subjects in here. It's not really a requirement, but for institutions who have real strict requirements on the study plan, you can include your specific subjects, and you can actually also import those using an Excel table to make the data entry process much more efficient for you. All right, moving on. Okay, so here is just a screenshot of what it looks like once you come to your institution profile. And so the contact person, you would add the person here, edit their information by clicking on this wrench in the blue box. And then we have the media files, same thing, add a media file, and then it'll give you a place to add that. And then here in the profile as well, you can add some text to describe your university. You can format it using a few different things. You can insert URL hyperlinks as well using this chain here, this link button. Next, did I skip anything? Nope, okay. Next, this is showing the study plan. So basically, if I clicked manage subjects here, it would take me to this screen here. And here in the subjects, I can, this is actually, I think, what it looks like from the applicant's viewpoint, if I'm not mistaken. And so when I come in here as an applicant and I'm searching for a program called English, then this will pop up down here if the administrator has already uploaded that list of subjects. And over here on the side, in the side menu, you can see here underneath this import tab, there's an import subjects section. So you just click there, you would follow the directions and import your subjects via Excel. And if you have any questions about that, please be sure to let me know. I'm just kind of going through kind of quickly. Okay, now, so these are actually things that you can do, most of them you can do as an external administrator as well. And so now I'll talk about the admin account. So what you're going to do is Sarah will let me know if there are new people to add to the system. We will migrate your institution to internal, and then I will send out administrator credentials to your email. And then you'll log into the system using those credentials. Let me show you here real quick what it looked like. So basically you would come here to the front page and you would just click on admin login, and then here's your login. And let's go back to the show. Okay, so that's all pretty self-explanatory. There are two levels of administrators that are in the system. So what I will do is I will create one AEC academic supervisor. They're kind of the higher level administrator in the system, and they're able to do a few more things than an academic supervisor. And so if you have people who you want to review applications and help you with the decision process, but you don't want them changing, for instance, the app form questions, then creating someone that is an AEC academic supervisor is a real good idea there. And if I'm unsure if you are able to do it, but if you are not, just contact Sarah or myself, and we'd be happy to create a new academic supervisor for you. Okay, so you want to fill in the personal information, and that's all pretty self-explanatory. So I just want to focus on what might not be self-explanatory, which is this add a signature. So these become a little bit important later on once you start using letterheads, especially. You will be able to use what are called content markers, which are a certain string of letters that are in between two percentage signs. And so what that will do is, if there is information in the system, if someone puts in some text in the box administrator signature, then the system will retrieve that information and place it back into this area right here. So that's really useful for your letterheads going forward. So the way I like to explain this, this is kind of like your email signature, something that you want to be at the bottom of a letter each and every time you send it, but you don't want to have to type it each and every time. So you can put your name, your position, your institution name, contact information, all of that into this field, this signature field, the administrator signature field, and it will, then you will have the ability to incorporate that information when you're sending out letters of acceptance and things like that. Additionally, you can also include an image of your autograph. So I'll do, if I have time, I'll do a little demonstration, but I have a little bit of a guideline here of what the size should be. And then you just upload a JPEG, I think, and then your signature will appear on the letterheads as well. And you use that with this content marker called administrator autograph. Okay, and so this is just a little example. So we are in the administrator right now, the administrator profile. This is my email address, so you just fill these in, your function. If you're an incoming coordinator or outgoing coordinator, you can specify that. This is your signature. You can put that you are in, your contact information, your telephone number, your address of your institution, and then this upload a file will be where you would upload the image of your signature. Okay, so agreements are the way the system knows that applicants are allowed to apply to your system from another, to your institution from specific other institutions. And it's quite easy. It's you will just go to agreements, which is under institutions, and they're organized by countries. You locate the institution you want to make an agreement with by navigating to a first country and then finding the institution. Then there are 5 types of mobilities. There are 5 incoming and 5 outgoing. And so you just come here and you simply you choose which ones are a part of your agreement with your partner, and then you click save. And instantaneously, there are programs automatically created, and there are intakes that are associated with those, and so this is how you go about expanding who your applicants can apply to, who your students can apply to, and which students from which institutions can apply to your institution. Sarah will have a little bit more about the rules for this, your internal rules in AEC. But I'm just explaining the technical way of doing it. Anything important here for each to? Okay. Next are the intakes. The intakes are the periods of time which are open for applications. So basically, it's just requiring a start date and a deadline. And you can have different deadlines for different countries. And you can also choose whether you want this to be a strict deadline or even a rolling deadline that's just open year round. And when an applicant applies and the current application period is closed, the application just goes to the next open application period. That corresponds to the term. And so here we are, just looking, this is what it'll look like. And you would just click on the wrench, the white wrench in the blue box, and it would take you to something like this. And then you would choose your starting date, and you would choose your deadline. And then you have your decision to make a different deadline policy right here. And so I hope that that's all pretty clear. I know that I think someone else is going to talk about app forms today, so I don't want to spend too much time. But app forms are the way that you control the form that the students will be using to apply with. So you can click, there are different sections to the app form. So let's say we're here in priorities. Actually, we would be, and this has been changed recently, now it's information and academic profile, I think it's called, something close to that. So let's say we go to profile. Actually, I'll be demoing this in just a second with my next presentation. So let me just move along. Please feel free to ask questions. The last thing to notify you about are journals. So there will be stretches of time, as I'm sure you're aware with, it's that you won't be receiving applications. So you won't be logging into the system that regularly. So journals are really useful. You're able to choose what events you would like to be notified about. And when somebody, let's say, is nominated, then the next day you would receive an email saying someone was nominated in the EASY system, and then you would know that that was a day for you to log in and do your work. So this is something that's really nice. You just come here and you subscribe to daily email by clicking on this sliding tab. Okay, that makes it for this, and I'll just move right into here. Maybe I'll stop for a second and see if any of you have questions. Please feel free to type in the chat or turn on your microphone and just let me know if you have any questions. I'll wait for about 20 seconds if I don't hear anything. All right, I'll get the other presentation loaded. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, so didn't appear as though anybody had a question. So I'll move on. So right now, I want to cover the major things that have been enhanced since last year. So easy, arranged for us to do some developments, and so I want to take you through those. So there were 5 major developments. The first is that a media file must be attached by an applicant before they are allowed to submit. I'll explain each one of these in more detail. The second is that some questions which are required by the AEC in their, Sarah can cover it a little bit more, but your policy, AEC's internal policy, the code of conduct, I think that's what it's called. These questions are no longer able to be deselected in your app form. So they already are selected in your app form, and so this should make it easy for you to begin using. If you're new to the system, you already will have a certain number of questions that are required by AEC and no more, and you'll just have to go in and add the additional questions that are important to your institution. The third, cloning an application will no longer carry over additional information that it shouldn't. It actually will only clone the questions that are required by AEC. All the additional questions, they will need to be filled out again. There are now 3 automatic emails for outgoing events. That's one thing about our journal. The journal is only for incoming events. It's from the perspective of an incoming administrator. And so sometimes there are reasons for you to want to have information about outgoing events. And we couldn't make a new journal, but we were able to make the system send out emails for 3 different events. One is if one of your students submits an application to one of your partners, you will get an email that there's been a submitted application. If one of your applicants has been accepted to one of your partners, you will receive an email notifying you of that. And if one of your applicants has been rejected, you also receive an email regarding that. And lastly, and I think possibly most popular, now the host institutions will be filtered based upon the home institution of the applicant. And I'll go through this real quick. I'll try not to take too much of your time. So this mandatory media file, so it'll look like this. So if I'm an applicant and I am filling out my application, if I do not have a media file, or if I do not have a media file uploaded, or if that media file is not supported, then I will be unable to submit my application. I will receive a warning that says, please upload 1 media file to your application. And only after I upload a media file will I then be able to successfully press submit. So this is basically what that says there. Mandatory app form questions. I think I discussed it more than I was planning on, but this is what this will look like when you are managing your app forms from now on. So, for example, a given name and family name, these are required by AEC, and so you can no longer deselect its mandatoriness, so it will be mandatory for the applicant, and you cannot remove these particular questions either. I think that there's 15 of these questions overall. And then the other questions, you'll be able to freely select them or deselect them at your will, and select whether the applicant is required to answer it or not. It's just that some of them are uneditable any longer for you, which means that they will be required for the applicant. All but one of them, because one of them is conditional based on another question, an if question. Okay, moving forward. Number 3, cloning will only select the questions and answers from the list, the 15 questions that are required by the AEC. So basically, if you are an applicant and you create a new application and you complete it to submission, then you will have answered these 15 questions. There's no way of getting around it. So if I go to clone an additional application, then those 15 questions will carry over to the new app form. And then the applicant will just continue and fill in all the additional questions required by that institution. And I can demo all of this, well, most of this in just 1 minute. For the automatic emails, once again, the journal will not notify you to outgoing events. So we have created automatic emails for all internal, incoming, outgoing institutions. So if you are the coordinator of an outgoing mobility, you will get emails now for when your students submit, when your students are accepted, and when your students are rejected. There will no longer need to be the logging in every day to check to see the status of your outgoing applicants in Browse, or the unnecessary communication between you and your partners. And these emails will look like this. They'll look familiar to some of you who are familiar with our nomination confirmation email. And so it'll have the name of the student, their email address, their citizenship, program, term, sending institution, receiving institution. We have removed the ISKED code at the request of the AEC. Yeah, and so when you receive an email like this, you will know that your student has been accepted. Good for them. Okay, the last one I want to cover is the filtering. And this is probably best for me to just show you. So after I talk about it for 20 seconds, I'll just go ahead and show you. So let's just start. Okay, let's see here. Who do I need to be? I need to be an applicant. Okay, so I am an applicant now. I'm going to become an applicant, and please, this is a good thing to do, but if you ever create test accounts, please help us know that they're test accounts so that we can remove them from the overall total of applications by just indicating that they're test. Just make it real obvious that it's a test. Yeah, so these are tests, and then I'm going to put my name. And I'm already in the system, so I'm going to do a little trick, which is to add, which is to add a plus symbol and then just some other stuff behind it. Okay, now I need to choose the consent. I think that this might be even something that's new since the last time. So now your applicants need to read and agree to the terms and conditions of the privacy policy. It's a GDPR issue. Then we'll sign up and continue. Okay, so this is my code. I should write it down and continue. And so now, to demonstrate once again how this fifth thing works, so I'm going to first of all choose my my home. This is my home institution, and so I'm going to choose the Dreamapply external. And so there's only one institution that has an agreement with the Dreamapply external, which makes sense. It's the Dreamapply demo institution. So everything else is filtered out. There's nothing else in this list. This will be a little bit more dramatic. If here, I can show you from in here. But if I choose, let's say, Aalborg, and I come here to change here, I'll only see the institutions that have an agreement with Aalborg. So it really can help you figure out and help your applicants especially. And so now it's much easier to find what is available to apply for. But I will just go back to what I was doing before. And we had a little issue with Iceland, but so just to show you someone who has even more than 5 or so, and then we'll choose who's available for them to apply to, and it'll be limited to 4 pages. And there you have all of these people. All of these will have something to apply to underneath Erasmus Bachelor, Master, PhD, or your Nord Plus or bilateral, all depending on what agreements are set up. Okay, so once again, we're going to set up. We're going to start. We'll go back to Dream. Fine. Okay, so this is my home, and this is where I want to study, and I'm going to start an application. And remember, I'm pretending to be an applicant, and one real useful way of doing this is to have an incognito window. So I'm like private right now. So I also have another window in Chrome open where I am an administrator. But I can test out what the applicant sees by logging in as incognito. So one thing that's required is a study plan. So I think there's a reason why I wanted to wait on that. So all of these questions, if they have this mandatory, so I will just go through real quick and make some stuff up so I can get it to submission. This is the one conditional question. It'll be required on your app form, but it's not mandatory to answer. So I'll leave that blank. Now it says your email. That's an additional change we made underneath contacts. The applicants will no longer have an excuse for putting their coordinator's email. It specifically says your email, and it specifically says your mobile phone. So no more excuses for why they entered the wrong information. Name of the International Relations Coordinator and their email address. Some referees stuff. I don't think it's required in every system. Okay, I'll leave that till later. And I don't know if this is required either, but okay, so I will save it. I will try to submit it. So now it says, please upload at least one media file to your application. So what I'll do, just one email, one MP3 that I have. I'll save it. Okay, my application was saved. I'll try to submit it. My application was submitted. All right, so now if I can quickly show you, so if I want to find another program, I actually need to change things up a little bit because there's only the one thing to apply to with that mobility. So I'm just gonna go ahead and choose, I reversed the mobilities. Of course, this is something students wouldn't be doing, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Now, so I can clone this application, and let's see what happens now. So, profile, so all of this information has been carried over. And the different questions, I remember okay, so there are additional questions here that are required. So this information here will be filled out, and then your applicant can apply to a different mobility. Okay, I think that that's about all. Oh, one thing I want to point out, from an administrator's perspective, let's see here. So let me just get my bearings. Okay, so I'm an administrator, and I want to know how I can get in touch with my partners. So this filtering option that we made, that's number 5, it can be used kind of like an address book. So what I can do is I can click on here, And I can just quickly click on Get Started. I can find myself. It's not going to be very useful because I only have the one. And then this is my, and I will be filtered to my partners, and I'll be able to get their information right here. So one thing that was asked of us was to create an address book, and this filtering has created kind of an ad hoc address book. Okay, I can't think of anything else that I might be forgetting, so I think I'll pass it on to whoever is next.
Yeah, I think it's me, but we are like 20 minutes ahead of schedule.
Okay.
So, well, is it possible there are no questions from the audience? Is it really possible? I'm wondering. Okay, so the first part was really for the new institutions, but I don't see many, if not none, in the list of participants, maybe a couple. But the second part, so the developments of what Breck just showed, is basically what we presented in Birmingham, what we will do. And this is the actual implementation, which was completed next week, right, on the 15th of January. Yeah. So it's basically what you asked last year to have. Yeah, and just a reminder to see what the student will see in the final line. You all know, or the old users know, that you need to enter the system with, let's say, a fake student's account. So also the app form and everything, unfortunately, you cannot see it as a student if you don't log in as a student. So each of you, in order to check how the students will see the system, should create like a student fake ID, a fake account. We know it's not maybe the best way to do this thing, but this is what the Dreamapply developers wanted to. Also for the other system of Dreamapply is like that, so it's how it should be. So my presentation is also similar to what I presented in Birmingham, so I apologize with those who were there.
What is?
They were there. So, sorry, I'm doing the webinar. Thanks.